Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tin Man's Corner channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm reading another chapter out of my South Carolina Ghosts from the Coast to the Mountains book by Nancy Roberts, and this one's called The Gray Man. Jacqueline Ashley arrived at Paul Lee's Island in the early afternoon. She had left her Charleston office, and without stopping for lunch, she had driven to the old house her parents had owned as long as she remembered. There was always something in the refrigerator to make herself a sandwich. She found some mayonnaise, bread in the freezer, and a can of chicken. She had slipped on blue jeans and shed her shoes, and now she sat at the kitchen table looking like a teenager. Her long brown hair was loose from its sophisticated knot and lay bouncy and free down her back. Often she met her parents here, but she never hesitated to stay at the house alone, even in October, when most families had left. She considered it the safest place in the world. It was where she liked to come and think, and when she walked along the beach in the early morning or late afternoon, she had always been able to sort things out and see what was really important in life. Jacqueline wanted to extend these next few days, make them last a long time. She decided the best way was to be very lazy. Hey, I wouldn't mind that at all either. She curled up in a chair with a novel and without attending to fell asleep like a child. It was over an hour before she awakened. Then opening the large wardrobe with the sweaters and jackets in it, she put on a bright red windbreaker, and a few minutes later felt the hard, wet sand near the edge of the surf beneath her feet. Wind off the water blew her hair, and the salt spray settled on her face and clothing like a fine mist. For the past 3 years she had thought that the more accomplishments she crowded into her life, the more she would enjoy it. Days raced past as she couldn't think of anything she had really done that gave her satisfaction, or they dragged by as if they would never end. Only now and then did tempo and meaning come together. Here at Paulie's, she would find the answer. She passed a surf fisherman on the beach, a man she knew slightly, and nodded. Before she knew it, she had reached the end of the island, and she retraced her steps rather than walk back on the creek side. The light was fading quickly now. The wind was higher, and she had begun to feel the chill, but still she did not hurry. Once she stooped to pick up a shell and looked back, whether she saw the figure walking along the beach then or became aware of it later when she climbed a dune and stared out over the ocean. She could not remember afterward. She was still some distance from the house when she realized she was being followed. She would walk for a while, then steal a look over her shoulder, and he would still be 200 or 300 feet behind her. She could not recall ever having seen him before, although she knew most of the people on the island. He was a stranger, and something about him sent a cold chill down her back. Perhaps he would turn off at one of the beach houses. He did not. She paused, thinking he might sense her apprehension, for they were the only two people on the beach, and paused himself, but he did not. On he came, and relentlessly as a robot, thought Jackie. I could run and see what happens, but the consequences of running, being pursued, and perhaps caught on the desolate winter beach struck sudden fear in her heart. She hastened her pace, and as she glanced back, she noticed that the man, too, was walking faster. No, I wouldn't dare trust running away from this person. They might end up catching up. Jackie's heart began to pound wildly. The comforting and familiar had turned to the strange and terrifying. What would she do when he caught up with her, as he surely would? She could turn toward an opening in the dunes and race towards someone's home, but most houses were empty this time of year. Where was the fisherman she had seen? Hadn't he been down opposite the Pelican Inn? No, he was gone. Her breath began to come faster, but to her great surprise, when she looked back again, she saw her unknown pursuer standing on top of the dune, looking toward the sea. It was getting dark. Mist was rolling in from the ocean, and even as she watched, a great gust of mist, borne on the wind, enveloped and swallowed him. Jacqueline ran as fast as she had ever run. An hour later, as she warmed herself before the small heater in the kitchen, it seemed ridiculous that anyone had followed her on the beach. That night she slept a troubled, fitful sleep. Whether it was because of her experience that afternoon, the sound of the wind, or the increasingly heavy rain, she could not be sure. She woke about 2 o'clock, decided to check the window locks, and fell asleep until 5. When she awoke, thinking she had heard footsteps on the porch outside her windows, she went to one of the tall, old-fashioned windows and pulled back the curtain to look out. By the porch light, she could see heavy gusts of rain, and the old house seemed to groan and shudder from the force of the wind. She was sure it was not an ordinary storm, but surely if a hurricane was on the way, there would have been radio warnings. She went back to sleep. Oh, before I continue, I forgot to show you. Right there. This is a supposed picture of this ghost on the beach. Out on the lonely beach, it was that last hour before the sun comes up